Too damn early for this shit, Conservation Officer Moon Flissport told himself as he steered his expedition down the country road, sweating bourbon through his pores. His heart was pounding in his skull, ready to explode across the front windshield because of the Knob Creek he'd torn into last night after his wife, Ina, had called him a racist. Moon had told her about the truck of illegal immigrants he'd pulled over for speeding, told her about the dope he'd smelled but couldn't find on their persons or in their vehicle. Told her how he'd taken everyone's driver's license, knowing all of them were fake. He'd radioed INS. They gave him the runaround, told him he couldn't prove they were illegal, told him to let them go. They didn't have the room or the time to deal with them. He told Ina one of the illegals had a license with the name Bob on it, and that's when Ina blew up, accused him of racial profiling. Illegals can have American names. His license ID'd him as Bob Dylan. It's not necessarily that bad people interest me, but it's how people are, the way that they are, why they do the things they do, regardless of how horrible it is. I think I guess the easiest word is survivalist. I always look at blue collar life. And there was a writer called Larry Brown who was a really big inspiration on me, and he led me to read all these different Southern writers because it reminded me so much of my childhood growing up. My grandparents farmed, my grandfather hunted, and my father fished, and he was a Vietnam War vet, and there was all these stories and hanging out at a local VFW and with my dad, and then my dad, would be drinking and come home, and my mom's like, we're supposed to be home hours ago, I was a kid and I never really thought about that, but when I started reading these other Southern writers, I was like, shit, they're writing about the shit that I've already lived, I was like, they're making money at it. But they were good writers, and I didn't know that I had the chops for it at the time. So Brady was old school, one of the best carp and cat fishermen in all of the county. Moon smiled and asked, "Hit a deer?" With curls the shade of a gray squirrel poking out from beneath his black and red checkered hunter's cap, he looked up at Moon with his eyes cracked by tiny red veins across the surface and big black dots in the center, and told him, "The cocksucker about gave my old bony ass whiplash." He pointed to where it had jumped out, said he slammed his brakes, but it took a pretty good dent and gave an even better dent to the front of his rusted Ford Courier, though it was still drivable. Taking the damage to Brady's truck, Moon kept noticing the faint scent of cooked bleach in the cold country air. Of course, the other thing in the book is methamphetamine. I had written an essay about meth, and nobody would publish it, so FSG ended up putting it on their little work in progress. And that's one of those things that actually hit Indiana when I was in high school in 1990. But it was, at the time, it was coming from the West Coast. It wasn't being cooked by some whacked out redneck who decided he didn't want to smoke pot anymore. He liked this stuff because it lasted longer. And I had friends that I went to school with that got hooked on meth. I mean, that's just something, it's just crazy. One guy was the basketball star in high school who didn't drink or ever do drugs. And it was his downfall, he got on it and could never get off of it. Now he's in jail, and who knows if he'll ever get out because, he just keeps fucking on. Laying his pistol down, he tugged his radio off the side of his stiffening arm, keyed it. "Berlin, 1078, I've been fucking shot. About 1 mile from where I was parked on Rothrock's Mill Road, taking cover in a pine thicket on Rusty Yates' property." "Sit tight, Moon. Another conservation unit, county K-9, and state police are on the way." Moon picked his Glock up from the ground. Adrenaline turned to panic. Footsteps crunched. Moon looked about the trees, saw no movement in the open silence. He wondered what direction the shot had come from. Remembered he was on duty and yelled, "Stop fucking shooting, I'm a conservation officer." Moon Flissport. Before he could finish, a voice screamed, "Fuck you, squirrel cop." It's something that is in Indiana, but it's all over, those type of stories, and it's just something that people don't always write about. I mean, there's a certain venue of people who do, like Daniel Woodrow or Larry Brown, Tom Franklin, all those guys, and I think you need, or no, Ray Pollock's another one. You need more. I think you need more stories like that because that's kind of where we all came from. Not a bunch of crackheads, but we all came from working class people. I think it's important that you know your history of where you come from. So, I mean, in a sense, that's kind of what I'm doing. He hadn't seen Rusty Yates in years. His wife had left him after he'd lost a good factory job at a battery separator plant that had sold out, moved to Mexico, hired a cheaper workforce, cost a lot of men and women their livelihood. Rusty owned more than 200 acres out in the middle of nowhere, needed a way to get by, hooked up with Ray Ray, the other voice Moon heard yelling, "Fuck," started cooking crystal meth. And by dumb luck, Moon had gotten too close while trailing the deer for Brady Basham. Rusty and Ray Ray had been out in the woods hunting, tweaked out of their minds on amphetamines, and seen him in his uniform, thought he was sneaking in the back way to bust them. Fisher said they caught Ray Ray and sent Brady home without the deer they never found. In the letter, Ina said she was unhappy, tired of his judging others with racist comments and never giving her the attention she needed. Walking from the kitchen to the bedroom with his glass of bourbon, he saw the closets were empty. Ina's luggage was gone. Moon was too ashamed to call the station, post a lookout for her license plate, a description of her '85 Toyota Land Cruiser. Taking a sip from the glass, ice rattling, Moon thought that worst of all, he was too drunk to go look for her.